The goal of this video is to introduce new WordPress admins to the phpMyAdmin database administration tool. According to the official phpMyAdmin site at phpMyAdmin.net, phpMyAdmin is a free software tool written in PHP intended to handle the administration of MySQL over the web. So, what does this mean to someone just getting their feet wet with WordPress development? I'll begin to answer this question by first showing how to log in to phpMyAdmin. I'm currently using WAMP Server 3.3.0 64-bit. If you're using this service for local development, you can click on the WAMP Server icon, hover over phpMyAdmin, and select phpMyAdmin. This will open a typical login screen. As you can see here, you could also simply enter localhost/phpMyAdmin. This, of course, may be different based off the settings you used when installing your server. If you are using a different server such as MAMP or some kind of Linux configuration, a simple Google search will help you to find out how to find and access your copy of phpMyAdmin on your server. I'd be surprised if anyone watching this video doesn't have phpMyAdmin installed, but if that's the case, you can install the software by downloading it from phpMyAdmin.net and following their installation instructions. The username is currently set to root, and I can use this root user without a password to log in. This is a typical setup for a localhost development environment. The root user is a super user that has privileges beyond what you want for most users on a database on your server. In addition to that, the root user often ships without a password, making the root user a serious security risk on servers accessible by the internet. On a localhost development location such as this, though, I usually just leave the root user as it is shipped: username, root, and no password. You can change your language if you desire here, and you have the ability to change to servers other than the MySQL server here. Since this is all about phpMyAdmin for WordPress admins, though, I'll just stick with the MySQL database. To begin with, I'll log in using the root user with no password. One of the hosting companies I've worked with and continue to work with is Bluehost. I will demonstrate how you currently get into phpMyAdmin from the back end of your Bluehost account. Once logged into Bluehost, you can select Advanced on the side menu bar. This will open a new window where you can access all kinds of tools for your website. Simply scroll down to the Databases section and select phpMyAdmin. This opens an instance of the software that is deliberately limited to only your WordPress database by Bluehost. This is just one example of how to use phpMyAdmin on a paid hosting service. If you don't use Bluehost, there is probably a similar process for your host. A simple search will probably provide you with a quick, easy answer to how to access your database with phpMyAdmin so you can follow along with the remainder of this tutorial. Because the Bluehost version is limited to only WordPress databases and it's safer for me to only show my local host servers, I will be using my local installation for the remainder of this video. And now here we are in phpMyAdmin. To the left, we have a navigation pane that allows us to change which SQL server we're working with and a list of the different databases that are available on that server. Currently, as indicated here, I'm viewing the databases in the MySQL server. The icons at the top of the sidebar call out their purpose with a tooltip when hovered over. The Home button returns to the initially loaded screen of the tool. You can log out with the Log Out button. There are links to both the MySQL and phpMyAdmin documentation pages. There are settings that can be applied to tailor your experience, and the navigation panel can be refreshed. This sidebar isn't required for using the software and can be hidden and revealed with this arrow. With the sidebar hidden, a list of the databases that was available in the sidebar can be revealed by selecting the Database tab. The sidebar, though, is a handy navigation tool and doesn't really take up too much room, so I tend to leave it revealed. Since this video is primarily about introducing the software for new WordPress admins, I'm going to skip to what is important, the WP Admin database. You can access the different tables for the WordPress database by either expanding them out with this plus sign or by clicking on WP Admin, and a list of them will be shown in the Structures tab. Either way, we can access the different tables that are required and stored for the implementation of a WordPress website. As far as individual tables and entries into the database, the first thing I'm going to look at is users. There is a users table here in the WP Admin database as well as a user table in the MySQL database. These different user tables have dramatically different purposes. The users contained in the users table in the WordPress database are users that are able to log into the WordPress development environment, and the information in that table contains all the information about a WordPress user. The user table in the MySQL database is for users of the database. As you can see here, there are several users listed in this table. The one that I want to point out is the WP Admin user. This is the user that is the WordPress website. The WordPress development environment needs a user that logs into the MySQL database in order to make changes to it. Therefore, when you create any sort of content or meta content when using WordPress, the website is logging into the MySQL database using a user with privileges that allow it to make changes to the tables in the phpAdmin database. For demonstration purposes and to bring this point home, I'll log out, then log in again using the MySQL user that WordPress uses. The username and password for that user can be found in the wp-config file for your WordPress installation. I'll just copy the DB password entry and use it with the DB username listed. Now, I'm logged in just as if I were the WordPress software. I have all the privileges and capabilities that the WordPress software has in the database. Next, I'll look at the posts table in the WP-admin database. As you can see here, the only posts that exist are the stock posts that come with any WordPress installation. And here, I have a user called splocal that is logged into this installation of WordPress. I'm going to go ahead and add a new post. I'll call the post example, then I'll write, "This is an example post for the phpMyAdmin video" as its content. I'll publish the post, go back to my phpMyAdmin session, and refresh. And there's my post. Actually, there are two versions of the post. One for the initial post creation, and one that is a revision of the post. The difference between these, though, isn't necessarily important until you start to dive into the database administration of your WordPress installation more deeply. The point here is the process that was undertaken when creating the post. I logged into WordPress with a user that is contained in the WordPress Users table and created a post. My WordPress installation was logged into the MySQL database using the WP-admin user that was created upon the creation of the WordPress site. When I created the post under the WordPress user, the WordPress software manipulated the WP-admin database in such a way that it created an entry that had all the information necessary for the post to be stored and retrieved when called upon by the web browser. Now that we have a glimpse of how WordPress interacts with the database, let's dive deeper into how phpMyAdmin's user interface works and how we as users can manipulate and get information about a WordPress database and therefore a website by using phpMyAdmin. We've already seen that when you add content to the website via the WordPress user interface, that content shows up in the database and can be viewed via phpMyAdmin. Next, I will show an example of the opposite process. First, I will go to the options table in the WP-admin database. You see here many of the possible options that can be set from within the WordPress user interface. The initial query only displayed the first 25 options. If I click on the box that says Show All, I can expand the query to show all the possible options for the website. As you can see, there are a lot of options here. The one I will focus on is option ID 4, Blog Description. Currently, the blog description is blank. If I go back to the website and select Settings General, we see that the tagline simply says Just Another WordPress Site. I'll change this to Adding a Tagline in the WordPress UI. Then I'll save changes. Back in phpMyAdmin, I'll reload the current page. As you can see, the tagline we entered is now entered into the database. I can edit this tagline directly here in phpMyAdmin. I can do this by clicking Edit, or as you can see here, I can also edit most values by double-clicking directly on them. I'll double-click and change the blog description to Editing the blog description directly from the database using phpMyAdmin. Press Enter, and we see that one row is affected. Back at the WordPress settings, I can reload. Now, I see that the site's tagline matches the change that I made in the database. Some of the options in the database are set to either 1 or 0. In the options table in phpMyAdmin, we see that User Can Register is set to 0. Back in the WordPress options, we see that a similar entry, Membership, is unchecked. Not just anyone can register for a user in this blog. I'll go back to phpMyAdmin and select Edit on the User Can Register field. I'll change 0 to a 1 in the option value field, then click Go. After reloading the settings page, we see that the checkbox is now filled out. Fields with checkboxes are entries of 1 or 0 in the database, 1 meaning checked, 0 meaning not checked. I'll uncheck and hit Save Changes. Then I'll reload the phpMyAdmin page, and we see that the setting is set back to 0. A new WordPress installation, as of the creation of this video, ships with the tables in the database listed here in the Structure tab of the WP-admin database. These tables and the relationships they contain are queried by WordPress whenever a post, page, or section of the user interface is accessed by a user or admin. If you're viewing this video and following along with it using your own website, and you have any plugins installed, you may see more tables than are listed here in your database. For instance, here in the Bluehost database that drives our website at steveproductions.com, I currently have over 40 tables listed. This is a lot compared to the 12 tables that ship with WordPress. Since this tutorial is designed to be an introduction to phpMyAdmin more than a tutorial on how WordPress actually works, a detailed description of the tables in the WordPress database goes beyond the scope here. If you're curious about learning more about WordPress's database and the tables it includes, there is a ton of information about it in the WordPress Codex. If you're interested in learning more, follow the link in the description. WordPress's Codex is an extremely useful tool for any level of WordPress admin, and I suggest get used to using it if you want to administer your own WordPress page. As far as phpMyAdmin goes, there is also a ton of information available about how to use the tool that go well beyond the simple introduction here. As mentioned before, at the top of the sidebar of phpMyAdmin are links to the documentation for both MySQL and phpMyAdmin. In the description, we've also included a link to the phpMyAdmin webpage, phpMyAdmin.net, where you can also view this documentation. From there, you can also check out the support page. The support page allows you to join the mailing list if you really want to get into phpMyAdmin, as well as a portal to frequently asked questions and ideas of where you can go if you need help using phpMyAdmin. As you may have guessed, this video only scratched the surface of 3 very large, very complicated subjects: phpMyAdmin, WordPress, and MySQL. It was our goal to make this video clear, concise, and helpful. However, when covering subjects as complicated as this, it is difficult to fit enough into a single release. If you have any questions about this or related topics in WordPress or phpMyAdmin, leave us a comment. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more elaboration on these subjects, as well as other helpful notes, tips, and tutorials to help you with your own small studio productions, publications, and promotions.